I'm Hitan Simtani. I'm the editorial director at The Real Deal, and it's my pleasure to invite you and welcome you to our quarterly series. This time it's focused in downtown LA. So downtown LA, back in the day, okay, the caveat is my aunt is a bit of an alarmist, but downtown LA was the place where she would say, you can't go at night, right? It started off that way, and over the past decade, it has seen the most incredible transformation. And why it's so special is it's a transformation on many fronts. We have more than 1.5 million square feet of retail coming. We have 7,500 units, 1,200 condo units coming to the market, and all over there's new office stock being added, as well as repositioned, reimagined. So we have a lot of people here who are in the thick of that, and we'll get to them. So on my right is Mike Ackerley. Mike is a VP and regional manager at Polaris Pacific. It's a new development sales and marketing company that spearheaded sales at 1050 in downtown LA, which I believe went very well, and is now working on 1150 Wilshire, 1133 Hope, and many others. So Mike, welcome.
Thank you.
On his right is Matt Ahrens. Matt is the EVP of acquisitions at Rising Realty, one of the biggest landlords in the area. He's overseen over 4 million square feet of acquisitions, deal volume about $1 billion. So Matt, thank you, and thank you for having us at your building. To his right is Mike Liepart, who heads new development sales at the agency. It's a top boutique brokerage in LA that's currently handling sales at Metropolis, which is a $1 billion project spearheaded by Greenland Group. So thank you for being with us. And to his right is Ricardo Begin. Ricardo is the founder and principal of Clarge Properties, which along with the Peebles Corporation and McFarland Development is developing Angel's Landing, which is a 1.26 million square foot project in downtown LA. Now, they're building a skyscraper, which is going to be one of the tallest buildings in the Western Hemisphere. I think it tops just over 1,000 feet at 1080 feet, and it's a really incredible project. We're going to be talking about that. And then to his right is Rachel Zenatos. Rachel is Director of Leasing at Brookfield Property Partners. That is downtown LA's biggest Class A landlord. They've overhauled major properties and in the middle of overhauling properties such as the Wells Fargo Center, California Mart Center, and they're really in the thick of seeing how large-scale office transformation can work in downtown LA. So welcome them all, and thank you so much for being here. I think I butchered at least 3 out of 5 names, so my apologies. I get that all the time as well. Rachel, let's start with you. You're in the midst of a pretty incredible retail transformation at Wells Fargo Center. You've called it the Halo. And what I'd like to understand is, A, the challenges of doing that, how you sort of decided to get into that process, and B, what sort of benefits or effects does it have on the office leasing space, because that's the main event at that complex.
We really pride ourselves as placemakers. So some of you may be familiar with us in Lower Manhattan. We did a big overhaul of a project called Brookfield Place. When Brookfield acquired a large portfolio MPG office back in 2013, they acquired a large portfolio primarily consisting of the 2 towers across the street, so Wells Fargo Center, you can actually see it out the window. But one of the first things I took a look at was what needs to be done here. The rest of downtown off of Bunker Hill has transformed a lot over the last few years. And Bunker Hill has kind of lost its shine a little bit. We're the largest landlord on not only in downtown, but on Bunker Hill, because we also own Bank of America Plaza across the street here and Gas Company down the street. We had to make some improvements to stay relevant, really. But having the benefit of doing both the office and handling all the retail leasing, I hear what office tenants are saying when they tour space. It's so much more than just the 4 walls these days, and they want environment, they want the experience. So our investment is huge, not only downtown but on Bunker Hill. We're planning to put in about $60 million across the street. It's challenging because with that kind of capital, it's hard to see some returns, but what you do see is more of relevancy. Of course, it helps with our office rental rates, but it helps in the perception as a whole. We look at it as we're creating an experience. This isn't just a 9 to 5 on Bunker Hill anymore. We want to create something that's more than that.
When you're a public company, though, how do you sort of define experience or opening the space up? That's hard to communicate to investors, and I wonder how that happens.
It's kind of easy just to show pictures of the before and what's proposed to be done. It was designed in the early 80s. It hadn't been upgraded since. So from a retail perspective, none of the infrastructure supports what new restaurants would need today. So in order to do any new leasing, we had to put in that money. So a lot of that money goes behind the scenes on creating that. But I think the argument is that if you don't do this, you're going to lose occupancy, and you're not going to see any new absorption.
Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say Bunker Hill did struggle for a couple of years, but we definitely are seeing a change, particularly with Brookfield's investment and then also Related's investment one block away with the Grand Avenue project and the completion of the Broad Museum. If you haven't been to the Broad Museum, definitely go. It's amazing and it's free.
Do you think, though, there's enough demand or enough future demand, let's say in the next 5 years or a decade, to absorb all that retail space that's coming? We're in an era of sort of transformative disruption to the industry, not just Amazon, but just how do you compete with, returns for absolutely, get same-day shipping, and then you can give something back. You could try things on. E-commerce is becoming more and more sophisticated. You could try things on in your living room or your bedroom. And how do you compete with that? How does foot traffic not suffer as a result?
Well, right here in this spot, we have 6 million square feet within a 200-foot radius. So that's a lot of lunches. If you walk through the downstairs, while Brookfield's under construction, our side over here is just packed with people. I think if you compare, say, Related's project, which will have a lot of retail, but also have an Equinox hotel, so it will have that brand cachet. If I were going to, bet two projects against each other, I'd bet on Related's project on Bunker Hill all day long over, say, Oceanwide's, 2 or 3 story retail across from Staples Center.
And Mike, when you're selling product, does the impact of the retail, does it play into what buyers are looking for? Are they saying, look, I want somewhere lively where I can walk out, grab a lunch, and then maybe shop a little bit? How do you sell the upcoming retail evolution to the buyers?
Well, I think historically, most properties have been developed in reverse, where we're going to sell or lease 200,000 square feet above, and then at some point the retail will fill in. Now, if you do and if all you're going to put is dry cleaners and a bank in, that's still how it's going to go. But there are a lot of developers that are trying to be really thoughtful about the entire experience of what they're creating. So you want to identify the retail first, because there's real money in touting the type of services and amenities that you'll have. Not all amenities have to be built by you and have to be in the HOA, right? Having a great restaurant is an amenity, and it's one that actually pays you don't pay for.
But how do you, when you're putting a project together, sometimes getting a Dwayne Reed or a Walmart or another big box tenant that may not add the glamour, but does make your financing a lot easier? How do maybe a developer, Ricardo, how do you push back against having that sort of big box feel?
Well, it depends what kind of feel, what kind of product you're trying to deliver. In our case, for example, we're trying to make it more of an F&B type of destination than it's a regular big box. We don't want to do the large grocery store or the large Dwayne Reed. We want it to be more of a 24/7 operation where we give more F&B activation. That means more restaurants, more bars, things like that, which you don't have up here yet. Downtown is primarily missing a lot of services. Right, so it's missing schools, it's missing other things away from regular Dwayne Reed or anything else. So it depends what you're trying to project your project to be. In our case in particular, we want it to be more F&B focused, and it will be more of a regular big box focus, if that answers your question.
But
Go ahead. Well, in downtown LA, I think, in particular, if you're leasing a lot of office space, we view retail as you want credit, you want high rate, and you want something hip. You're never going to get all three, so you got to pick two.
Okay.
You'll be lucky if you get two, and so we approach it. At Pac Mutual, we had to have those retail amenities. So, initially we gave on rate, and later we gave on credit, because we wanted a specific concept in a specific space. If you're going to hold out for credit and rate and expect those tenants to be hip, also, you're never going to get them.
So developers have some sort of index of coolness versus credit, and I guess that's something you work on.
They're called interns.
Fair enough. Ricardo, I think your project is ambitious in a way that I think deserves a little bit more discussion. You're trying to build a super tall, which I'm assuming you're trying to sell units for a lot of money, and you're also trying to do it in an area that hasn't really seen a project of that scale. With that comes some pushback. With that comes, I'm sure banks are like, well, you know what? We like to see a tried and tested model. Here you're building something that really is new for this neighborhood. Talk a little bit, A, about the financing challenges, and B, about the community challenges. And can everyone hear everyone? Just let me know if there's any, and we'll everyone will speak it.
I mean, look, it's a challenging site, it's a challenging project, no matter how you slice it, right? It has a lot of different skins to it. But the bottom line is we're building something that's very different to what's being built here today. That makes it on its own, puts the idea on its head. It just flips it over, which it was our main idea. We wanted to bring a product that was super amenitized. We're used to that in New York. In New York, you see those projects left to right. You have 20 of them in New York. We're building one in Greenpoint right now, and that's the norm. You have a lot of amenities, and it's no big deal. Here, they haven't totally gotten that curve done correctly. Like if you look at the Edison, the addition that Wyckoff is doing on the west side, that gives you an idea to what services could possibly be on a project here. Greenland tried to do that, but not exactly got that curve, and Oceanwide is getting closer to that. We're trying to round out the rest of it. So when it comes down to thinking about a 1,000-foot tower, thinking about, our units are family-size units. We're going to be doing 2 and 3 bedrooms, no studios, no one beds at all. Our minimum size is going to be about 1,700 and up. So, these are family-size units. The way we're going to be getting away with it is not just doing a model that's going to have to be proven or anything like that. You already have a case study with Greenland as to what they did. The Oceanwide is going to be a further study to that, and I think they're going to do well by what I've seen. We're going to further that by bringing services that they're just not going to be offering whatsoever to the resident, number one, and to the spectator that's going to be coming in. So it's not just another hotel, another residential tower per se.
But is that your pitch to Wells Fargo or JP Morgan or?
The pitch to Wells Fargo is very simple. It's not our first one. In New York we've built 2. In Detroit, out of all places, we did a condo hotel and it did well, the Westin in downtown, and it did well. The model works, but it depends how you pitch it and where you go. The idea, just so you know, the idea of us doing it on this side of town instead of South Park, it was very simple. South Park is crowded. And if you think about South Park is more of an entertainment hub. If you have a family, if you have kids and everything else, I don't know how far you're going to want to be in the middle of the Lakers game getting in and out and all these other events. That's cool for a few minutes, but after a while, you want to be quiet, you want to be private, you want to get into your house and nobody bothers you. We felt that we could offer that up here with a little bit more intimacy and also more nicer amenities, like all the stuff that's being built up here, which is already here. You don't have that down there. It's more of an entertainment. It's a little different to what we're doing here.
I mean, really, it's a natural evolution of downtown. Not everyone is going to want to be right next to Staples Center and LA Live. The new convention center expansion, 350,000 plus square feet, and a large hotel. There's going to be people that want to see the same level of luxury that have been brought in the new development for sale or rental projects in South Park, but expanding out to other areas of downtown, whether it's the historic core, the arts district, or where Angel's Landing is located. There's a number of interesting things about your project, but I think not the least of which you hadn't mentioned yet, is the charter school.
Well, I was going to get into that.
Yeah.
And so as part of the process, when we think about it, we started thinking about this site in 2015. So we've been thinking about it for 3.5 years. One of the things I thought about, I looked and I said, what is everyone building? Everybody's basically building the same thing over and over. If you really look at the stuff, I said, let's bring something that either they cannot build or they don't want to build or whatever the case is. And I said, what's the service that anyone could do a Duane Reade? Anyone can do a grocery store. I mean, that's their revenue driver. It depends on the deal you want to make. No, a school's a different story. It's very difficult to pencil those. And we did a study. We said, let's go from 1st Street to 11th Street, 110 Highway to LA Street. Tell me how many schools you have in there. The answer was 0. You only have basically 1. The next one is in Boyle Heights to the east, and the next are in Koreatown. We knew that we have, as you said, 7,000 to 10,000 units, all being delivered almost in one shot over the next 3 years. We said, where are they going to take them? They're not going to go to the west side. Well, that's where they're going now.
So
we
what's your
wanted to give
pitch
them
then
something
to
that they can
the community? Seeing a project of this scale can be disconcerting. This is something we've covered quite a bit. There's, beyond the NIMBYism, which is what every developer in town has to deal with, there is a real concern about, making the place less affordable. We have a project, Industry City, for example, in New York, where suddenly you go from a working class community to $26 lobster rolls, right? So it's a challenge. So how do you deal with that challenge?
Yeah, and I know the Industry City that thing very well.
Lobster rolls aren't bad, but they're expensive.
They are. I mean, I can't cut it in two different ways. It is a luxurious project, right? I can't shape it just to be something that is not. But the luxurious project is also bringing a group of things to the community that are beneficial, not just the school. Affordable housing, we're also, I don't know if you know, we are behind the redevelopment of Pershing Square Renew. We are the 501c3, myself and McFarland. So, the added amenities and the added things that will bring to the community at the end of the day, because of the revenue that we're going to make of the project, is very important to the overall growth of it. We have a situation with homelessness here that's very serious. We're looking to put funds and ideas to help address that, because it does affect us. I mean, it's a block away, it's 2 blocks away. So the community issue will be big. I mean, they will have pushback about it, but the beauty about our site is that it's as of right. It's as of right. That's the difference between our site and almost any site down here. The minute you get out of Bunker Hill, that building cannot be built unless you get TFAR or you get extra air rights. We're building the tower as it was supposed to be built back in 1989 when it was Calpasa 3. It was 2 million square feet, exactly about 100 feet less in height, because all we did was shrunk the tower and picked it up. So really, the community pushback will be strong, but at the end of the day, we're not asking for something that was not supposed to be there already.
Matt, I want to get your take on it as a developer as well. How do you have those conversations? Have they changed? Is there more openness in general to large-scale development in downtown?
I think that's why it should be occurring downtown, because there is no one's being displaced by a project like, it's
what I was gonna say.
a vacant lot. So it will only add to the city. So that's why I think you see so much development downtown, because you can develop downtown, and that's really where it should be happening, as opposed to single-family neighborhoods.
Fair enough.
I mean, the reality is that you have to build where the density is allowed if we're going to solve the affordable housing crisis. So that's the strongest argument I could possibly make to any advocate that's thinking about displacement and thinking about how we're going to provide housing for everyone. You have to build where you can, and downtown's a spot for that.
Our last panel, I think everyone was talking about just how long it takes to get projects off the ground. I think that was the biggest gripe in developing in LA versus developing almost anywhere else in the country. I think the entitlements are incredibly complex. They take a long time. But now we're in a situation where we have 7,500 units hitting the downtown LA market, according to the recent bid report. I think about 1,200 odd condos. Can the market, Mike L, Mike A, I'll go that way. Mike L, can the market absorb that kind of product? Is the product being designed with the current resident in mind, or where are the buyers coming from?
I think in the big picture, time not being considered, obviously the market could absorb that and a lot more. If it were all to come tomorrow, the market would get really soft. So I think the timing is a big part of it. I do think there's a little bit of a rub between what's being built and who is here. And I actually think that it's the multifamily market that's solving that riddle for us. The fact of the matter is the primary buyer on the high-end luxury condos right now are empty nesters. They're not, most 28-year-olds don't have a couple $100,000 for a down payment, right?
But the crypto buyers now.
But they can pay $3,000 or $4,000 a month. Now, whether they ever develop into a buyer because they've been paying $4,000 or $5,000 a month will be a separate issue. But they bring a vibrancy, they bring an activation to the market that allows us to have fantastic restaurants and fantastic retail and all of that stuff. So the condos depend on the apartments to give it the vibrancy that we can get all of the F&B and the other stuff that we want. But the issue is, and this is going to be an issue, is that land prices are so high, construction prices are so high, it takes so long to develop that everyone's building ultra luxury because that's the only thing that pencils. And that's not representative of what we should be trying to sell. And you mentioned the housing crisis. I mean, We're not solving this is high dollar stuff down here. We're not solving any housing crisis in downtown right now. The school is a great start to the things that, we have shortcomings, but to talk about downtown, this cycle and however long this cycle lasts, I know it's like, we don't talk about these things, but however long this cycle lasts, that's only part of the story of downtown. Downtown's going to keep expanding, keep growing. As you mentioned, it's a lot of parking lots. People aren't being displaced. It's the only thing where we can accrue more people than what we already have, right? So this is a 20-year play, and we're at X, and it's going to have 7 cycles or whatever the case may be. Hopefully, we'll have a little bit of a consolidation where we can get construction prices somewhat under. People get a little more realistic about the dirt, and maybe we can build some great buildings that we sell for $750 a foot, not $2,000.
But to your specific project that you're working on now, Metropolis, that's looking like it might straddle this cycle and perhaps the next. What's
I'm
going
not
on?
sure.
What's going on at that project? I mean, it has been a
Sure.
bit of a mystery. We've described it as musical chairs.
Right.
What's going on?
Well, a couple things. I mean, we're the second group in, so I don't know if that qualifies as
You're
musical
still on the chair,
chairs.
so you're
And the
fine.
first group was there for a very long time, so it's relative. But I'll say this: I don't know, and this is super scary if I'm Ricardo. I don't know how you could develop in a cycle in Los Angeles. You're either starting when it's good and you're going to have a downturn, or you're starting in a downturn and hoping to get it in. But it's not going to be a party the whole time. It just takes too long. Okay, and cycles are getting shorter also. So there's that. But here's the thing, or at least I think, is I get a little indignant when people talk about Greenland. I mean, all they've done is build $1 billion project, and they're not like running around showing renderings with an entitlement. They've taken money and they've built it. And the amount of courage that has, it's a little silly that people like us sit on panels and make fun of it, because that's the real deal. That's like, at the end of the day, the guy that like buys that, puts that shovel in the ground, it's impressive. So I think, number one, that they deserve an enormous amount of credit for keeping it going and building off what the success the Ritz had and continuing that process. Secondly, I think that it's a very successful project. Tower 1's 80% sold. Tower 2, we're starting closings ASAP. It's just, we've known about it for so long, it seems like it's taken a lot longer to get to this point than it actually has. We've only been in Tower 1 for 1 year. Tower 2's not even finished.
That's a fair point. I think people have a hard time understanding sort of the scale of these projects, the timeline. And just to your point, we had the head of Greenland America, we had Gang Hu on our panel in Shanghai, and he sort of addressed this as well. He said, our timeline isn't 2 years or 5 years, it's 20 or 25 on these projects. But
And on a project of this size, you can have a 2 to 3 year timeline. Our project is 5 years out, and even after for that, you probably have another 5-6 years. It's impossible. Look at 157 in New York. That guy's still selling units 10 years later, I think it is.
well, that guy's selling at a loss now. But
He's selling
made
at
his
a
money.
loss now, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, sometimes in certain projects, you cannot just sit down and say, we'll be out in 3 years. I mean, as he said, sometimes even if you plan it and time it, you could still miss the market. We hope that we come and start building in a market that's actually a downer, but you cannot exactly control that. You see?
I think the great thing about apartments as opposed to condos is they will absorb. It's just a function of what rate. And for the next cycle, all of the people that are occupying the units being built now will have already decided to live in downtown LA. So you won't be making the neighborhood argument to that group of people, and they will potentially be able to trade up to higher, the next product.
And by the way, I want to add one thing to that, is that here's what you never hear. You never hear a 28-year-old in LA go, I just don't get downtown.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
You hear old fat guys like me say stuff like that. And so if it doesn't matter what I think, and it doesn't matter what I understand, okay? The young people want to live down here. They want to walk. I was over at Broadway today, and Shay was nice enough to give me a tour, and the retailers that are down there, and the fact that all the high fashion houses are now are all about streetwear. Like, all of these confluences are coming together and making downtown like the hippest place. You couldn't give some of the stuff, like, a 28-year-old doesn't want to live in Brentwood. They wouldn't understand why you would.
But even if you don't need to, your brokers who are, I'm sure there's, how many residential brokers in the house, if I could get a show of hands? These are the people who are out there selling that product. So how do you communicate, what do you communicate to them when, how do you make them make the buyers understand what's it?
Well, that's my point. I don't think you can make a buyer understand. I don't believe that you can get a buyer to do anything that they don't want to do. My point is that there are a lot of buyers that maybe haven't been in real estate for 20 years, and maybe they haven't lived in LA for 20 years. So they don't have any of the ridiculous biases that we have. And they look at downtown and go, it's full of great restaurants. It's got great retail. This is amazing. Okay,
All the
that's what they
buildings
see.
Are brand new.
Yes.
I think what's important to understand as well is that at this point, downtown is a destination of choice. It's not a backup plan. It's not getting priced. It's not a result of being priced out of another neighborhood. So we're no longer selling the dream of downtown to buyers
You're
that
not
don't,
hearing,
that
this
don't
was
already
too
get it.
expensive.
Not
That
at
was
all.
5
I mean,
years
I would-
ago.
Well, and I'll
was 5
give
years
you
ago.
I'll give you a story. So 7 years ago, I had 2 buildings in my former company. We had what is now Apex downtown, and we had Solaire in Koreatown. And we made the decision that we could have to rent one and sell one, because if we possibly brought both those projects to market, we would cannibalize the people. Think how ridiculous that is. One 200-unit building in downtown, one 200-unit building in Koreatown, and we didn't think they could both be on the market at the same time. Now look at what this market is just 8 years later. Okay, that's bananas that we looked at it that way. That's how far it's come, and it's adolescent at best. It was an infant, and now it's like, it's not even driving yet. So we're very, very early in this process.
And on the for sale side, the people that are purchasing are already extremely experienced with downtown. At 1050, we were seeing more than 50% already lived downtown at the time. A significant portion of that were on their third residence. More than 60% already work downtown, and I just saw some statistics from the bid today that said in a survey that they just did of people who currently work downtown, more than 35% of them would consider moving here.
I want to chime in on the commercial side. I know this is very residential focused, but I think from the commercial side, to all your points, when we tour large tenants through our office projects, it's not about, okay, what are your operating expenses? It's what's downstairs, what's going on, how close am I to residential, how close am I to retail amenities. We have a very large user, 200,000 square feet plus, who the real estate director didn't want to talk to, our EVP of leasing. They wanted to talk to our young guy to say, like, where do my young people go? The average age for their company was something like 27 years old. So I think, to your point, the point has been proven among the younger generation. But also, it's not lost on these large employers who are looking downtown. The guys who are on the west side who are, were west side focused for so long are now realizing their young talent, they aren't totally focused on West Side anymore. They are looking downtown.
I was actually going to transition to you anyway with the next question, which is, I guess in the cycle leading up to the crash, the 3 words on everyone's mind were other people's money, and now the 3 words are live, work, play. Right? How many, does that movement have legs? Talk a little bit about how Brookfield's used that. And just we've seen some hiccups with, let's say, for example, We Live. They tried a few things. It's very complicated to build buildings to those specs. The developers aren't used to the gymnastics that requires. But talk a little bit about your experience with Convene. Is it Convene?
Yeah, thank you. We're not in the world of developing a live-work scenario per se. At least the property side is not. But we have invested in a company that's based out of New York called Convene. They opened up their first LA offices with us across the street at Wells Fargo Center. They took 2 full floors, and they're this next generation of the meeting and hospitality services. They do have a component of co-working as well, but it's a smaller model. They're really taking this, the meeting and how you work to the next level. I highly recommend anybody who's downtown take a whirl through their space. I'm happy to put you in touch. But they took 2 floors across the street at our North Tower. 1 floor was the former Wells Fargo bank space. The other was a series of things. 1 floor that I actually officed on in my early career, and I was blown away when I walked in because the space is transformative. It feels like a completely different experience it's a great alternative to your hotel meeting spaces.
But more broadly, so Brookfield had actually invested in
Yes.
Convene. It led, I believe, the Series B or Series C. Is that something you see as the future of, I want to ask both developers here, but is that something you see as the future of a big company with capital investing, actually backing these companies, more than just having them as a tenant, but actually backing them so that you could evolve as they evolve?
To a certain degree, yes. I think you have to be strategic about that, but I think you've seen it with a couple of large institutional ownerships, just investing in these firms that are looked at as almost an amenity because, again, you're not just selling 4 walls as an owner, as a commercial owner these days. You're selling an experience, and you have to deliver, to your point, the live, work, play. Our development across the street, the whole conversation is how do we create a space where someone comes in the morning and they can go through their entire day and go home at night and feel like they've accomplished more than just working.
Yeah, when it comes to co-working, I view the evolution of that space as being more integrated with the building landlord, the owners. I think eventually there's really no reason for a WeWork to exist independent of the property management company. And so, certainly we've seen a lot more amenities and services being applied to buildings. For example, in this building and at Cal Edison, just down the street that we own, we have an on-site concierge. So it's someone that sits in the lobby full-time and can make reservations, book travel, plan events for any employee in the building. And so that level of service, I think, is something that tenants will become to expect and they haven't seen before.
That's a concept that's sort of born out of what someone like a WeWork did.
Right. And I think ultimately that the short-term co-working type space will actually help landlords kind of phase out, in particularly big buildings like this, some sort of structural vacancy which occurs when big tenants kind of jockey for space. They put in a lot of restrictions on space surrounding their space, so it actually creates this kind of artificial vacancy in buildings that I think we can take away by giving them more short-term, flexible, built-out space options.
You could see yourself essentially going into that space instead of a provider or bringing a provider.
Yeah, I think in the next downturn when WeWork starts giving back space, landlords will just step in and take it over and say, well, thank you for building out this space for me.
In terms of just on the whole live, work, play thing again, proximity, how much of a deal is that? I want to walk to work. I want to walk to wherever I go. I don't own a car. I haven't ever owned one, or I haven't owned one in the last 5 years. In terms of buyers or even renters, what are you seeing?
Well, I think the key word there is proximity. I inherited a lot of real estate that was done in the mid-2000s when live, work, play meant it was like on the ground level and it had a bedroom upstairs and it was licensed. You could be an architect downstairs and you couldn't give one of those units away. So if we take it very specifically, I don't think we want to do all of our things in one place. But I think proximity is absolutely the key, and proximity maybe doesn't mean what it used to with the advent of Uber and some other things. So, Arts District is still an asset to South Park and vice versa, and you still don't have to have a car, right? So I think proximity that's what it's all about. And the more things, if you look at what Ricardo's doing, That's next level shit, right? He's putting a school in, right? So he's not getting a bodega or getting a cool restaurant. He's putting a school in. The fact that all developers are sharpening their knives like that, okay, and coming up with new things, and you're talking about the innovations you guys are making, like that's why downtown is here to stay. Nobody's doing that in Beverly Hills. They say, I'm on the corner of Cannon and whatever, I don't need to do shit, right? So the fact that we're innovating downtown, the fact that everyone is trying to come up with a better, that's a better mousetrap. That's why downtown's here to stay.
Yeah, I think the other thing that tenants are starting to realize, like Jurdy moved to one of our buildings from Venice after being in Venice for 26 years. And they're an architecture firm, a global architecture firm headquartered here. And they initially moved because they couldn't hire entry-level architects that could live in Venice, right? So that was why they were open to moving downtown. But then, as we found from other firms that have moved downtown several years ago, their business actually increases substantially because of the proximity to all their clients. And so they're seeing growth that actually is because they're running into vendors and clients at lunch and being actually more in the flow of transactions than they would be in a more suburban location. Even though Venice isn't suburban, but you're cut off.
Ricardo, your design slogan's probably going to change after this panel to next level shit, which is going to be good.
It should. I have a branding company. I mean, I've already come up with it, so we don't have to charge you very much.
Good. I mean, look, everything that's been set up here is correct. I mean, we are going beyond what we believe LA can do. I mean, we feel that by bringing it there, everybody's going to sharpen their pencil, sharpen their ideas, and probably better projects than mine that will come up in the years to come, right? That's the idea. I mean, the co-working thing has been happening for a while, right? It's a great deal. The convenience space is amazing, by the way. I've visited it. Very good. One idea that we're looking at, for example, is Envoy, which I don't know if you guys know. Envoy is a small company, tech company, and they basically come and put vehicles in your garage. They'll put a Lexus, they'll put a Mercedes, they'll put everything else. And if you're a tenant in the building or you're within a half a mile of it, you'll be able to put an app, pick up a car, and go. So now you're not going to have to rely just on an Uber or rideshare or anything else. You'll be able to pick it up in your own building as an amenity. So you have to think way, way beyond, as he said, in the next level shit, which is what we're trying to do. And that's an amenity we're looking to bring in ours to change things around.
And that's going to be structured as a common charge, or is it structured as a
most likely it could be a common charge to the condo owner, but then it'll be a rent share for the hotel owner. So you can't charge it. Can't charge it twice.
Envoy actually shares the revenue with the HOA.
Correct.
That's created by the leasing of the cars. And one of the things that's really interesting about it as well, if you compare it to some other options that have been out there in the past, like an Audi at home, for example, is that there's no commitment and you can scale up or down. So depending on the size of your project, you can get 1 car, you can get 10 cars, and if you don't want 10 cars anymore, you can go down to 5 the following year. So there's a huge amount of flexibility there.
So, for example, just to go very quickly, a lot of people have asked us, because there's been stuff going on about us not building our parking to code, for example. We're thinking about how to work around that. You don't necessarily need to build 1,000 parking spaces in order to figure it out. You could get very creative uses, like an Envoy, for example, and that result 500 or 700 of your parking spaces, because most people, like the 28-year-old he talks about, they don't want to own cars. I have 3 guys in my office that don't own cars at all, and they don't live here. They live in Koreatown, they live on the west side. They take everything except a car for a lot of reasons, like cost, traffic, a lot of reasons. And Envoy could be a solution to guys like that all day long. You see?
I want to ask a broader question and then turn it over to the audience. But one quick question for you, Mike, is one of your buildings, I believe, is the one that just had a pretty good high sales velocity. Did you have a drone landing pad? And if so, what the hell was that about? How did it work? Did people respond? Or was that just a...
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to get some attention for the building, and it's future-proofing, right?
Cool.
You're putting something in the building that at some point there may be a need for. But the reality is, at this point, you can't use drones commercially to actually drop off on top of buildings in downtown Los Angeles. But they did bring in the first resident move-in keys on the day that they arrived.
Well, that's fair. Wait, they actually dropped the keys off?
Yeah.
Oh, now it's an occupied building, so is that... wow, okay, that's interesting. I'm going to turn it over to the audience after this question, but just in terms of what the city is doing to spur development or transform the city, one of the initiatives that I find interesting and has had mixed results is bringing back Broadway. And wanted to see what your thoughts are. I think this is about a decade in to the initiative when it was first announced. Has it really done what it was supposed to do? Have there been shortfalls, or what's been the biggest benefit? Whoever wants to take that.
I will say, look, the Bringing Back Broadway is an incredible and necessary initiative. It's taken too long for them to get it off, and it's really, think about it, Broadway is controlled by a few landlords. You know, it's only 3 or 4 landlords that control the entire stretch from 1st Street almost to 9th, 10th Street. So the lag that you've had in development of that is the actual owners actually agreeing to what the vision should be and having a little more vision and just pushing it through. I believe that the Bringing Back Broadway initiative is something that will finalize the activation of Broadway. I mean, if you've seen pictures of that area in the 30s and the 40s, it was amazing. You know, and if they could work to get it to that into a 21st century kind of feel, it will work. I mean, look at the Nike store that they're doing; it's doing amazing. Look at the Urban Outfitters; it's doing amazing. You know, but the owners that control a lot of the stock of the buildings there should either get together and create a plan that they're happy with that goes along with the initiative itself, if they don't like it, or at least try to abide by it if they could, because it'll only benefit them and everybody else. That will be the center of town at the end of the day, like it used to be at the beginning. So.
I mean,
Rachel, anything from the office side on that initiative?
I don't know that I can speak truly
fair.
to that, except from, a retail perspective, just that, it's, I think someone on the panel noted, 10 years ago, no one would touch that street. Today, it's highly coveted, and I mean, from a retail component, it's done its job for sure. I mean, there's still a lot to go, but there's certainly the seed has been planted.
I was going to echo that and say I think it's been a tremendous success. I mean, has every goal been achieved that was set out? No, not to date, but
What's been the biggest benefit then?
the reactivation of the center of downtown Los Angeles and a realization by investors, developers, and operators that there is absolutely a market at this location and a reason to be there. And although there is still a relatively high vacancy, I think there's 1 million square feet of available space above the first floor and 15% or so vacancy rate at street level, I think that as the next cycle progresses and you see more residential development flow into the historic core, you know, Jeffrey Palmer's building open up earlier this year, you have Perla opening up the condo project on the north side later this year or next year, and you're going to see a natural solution to this vacancy problem as people move into the historic core. And of course, everybody's waiting on Apple.
I think the bids have done a great job. They supplement city services. They promote their districts. So the bids have done a great job. I think an initiative like bringing back Broadway is great in concept, but I think ultimately development has to occur organically. And you know, for example, on Spring Street, we acquired a building that was vacant for 20 years, and we're doing a $150 million project there that will be the first institutional quality historic creative building in the historic core, and that'll be a 300,000 square foot building.
What's the address on it?
It's called the Trust Building. It's between 4th and 5th on Spring Street, so the north edge of Spring Street, which was one of the first blocks to be converted to condos, and this was really this is the last piece on that block that's really been a neighborhood since the early 2000s, and we think it'll be a really phenomenal project. Really bring product that doesn't exist. You have access to the financial district. You can walk to transit, but you get some of the cool creative spaces that you might expect in the arts district with lots of outdoor space and common area outdoor amenities.
Might close this out.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I know it seems like it's taken a long time, and it has, but we're on the cusp. There's so much great stuff that is in planning right now or already entitled or they've started construction on that even in 2 years, it's gonna seem silly that we weren't sure whether that was going to take off. It's taken off. It's just going to take a little bit longer before everybody can see the fruits.
Fair. I'll take a couple of questions from the audience. If you raise your hand, someone will be around with a mic. My only request is just please ask one question and let it be a question. The question was, if rent controls expanded, what's your next move?
Oh, I mean, I guess I could talk to our situation. If rent control moves, what happens? I mean, It depends, because sometimes the law can expand and not affect projects that are already in the pipeline. It'll affect projects that are new. I mean, look, it's like New York. You have the 80-20 thing and the new 421A law. We adapted to it in New York, right? For 421, New York, as it's known today, is much more stranger than 421A was 5-6 years ago. So I think you as a developer will adjust to it. It will be the best answer. Because in New York, 80-20 projects today are almost norm, whereas here they're not norm yet. So I think the best answer will be we will adjust.
So I'm at the agency for Mike's ad, and I recently chaired an $85 million raise for a charter school here in downtown LA. We're successfully completed. We just finished the last $35 million building. So I'm close with education, but I'm also close with residential real estate. And I don't understand why it's taken so long to realize that if you're building all this residential space, you've got to have schools.
100%.
You can't build, people want good schools, they want great schools. So if you build great schools, great buildings, you're going to fill them up.
Are you seeing that from buyers, or the demand for schools everywhere? Is this something? I know you're not allowed to ask certain questions, I guess, but.
Sure. I mean, at this point downtown, no, there's not a large demand related to schools, but I think that it's a demand that is percolating out there and could actually exist, but somebody needs to build the product for families, and there needs to be schools to go to. Right now, you're not seeing people come into a sales center talking about that because we're not building for them.
I did want to, I neglected to introduce our managing editor in Los Angeles. That's Alexi Barrionuevo. He wasn't in my line of sight when I was doing this. But anyway, I really wanted to thank everyone and thank our panelists for this engaging discussion. We'll start 3:45, our next panel. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.